RFID chips, or radio frequency identification chips, are tiny wireless devices embedded in tags that can transfer data from the tag attached to an object. Chips can be the size of a grain of rice and are incorporated in just about every consumer product. They can even be implanted in pets for identification. The RFID tag can be affixed to an object and used to track and manage inventory, assets, people. For example, it could be affixed to a car, computer equipment, books, mobile phones. But the ubiquitous nature of these RFID chips have some worried that they might one day be used to track and control humans. How long, they wonder, before all citizens are urged to implant RFID chips under our skin?
Many have started paying for things with our phones, even watches.
One company, though, wants to take that technology to another level by implanting a chip in your hand.
Neuralink is also generating concern among some people. Musk has officially confirmed that
hopefully later this year we'll do our first human device implantation.
Indeed, Elon Musk's Neuralink has been making headlines as it applies its revolutionary research to all humans.
Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin would have given their left arm for such a surveillance system. Now, the RFID chips are already in almost every piece of clothes you have. So, having them in your body is not going to really change it that much more. But it's just that downward slope toward there is no privacy. At the end of the day, if we ever have a government that wishes to go after any part of the population, it will be virtually impossible for someone to evade it.
It's basically a computer chip with a radio antenna. Now, they can be made small as a grain of sand, and who knows going forward what forms they're going to take, but right now the typical RFID chip looks like a grain of rice.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand. Or in their foreheads.
There's been a series of fears that have driven all kinds of policies in the West, and so I can see that eventually, perhaps, a fear is used to tag everybody.
Wow, you've got UPS, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Home Depot. More and more companies with each passing day are jumping onto the RFID wagon. Because there is no law to indicate whether or not an RFID is present, as the consumer basically opens themselves up to data mining simply based on the fact that this chip can be read at a distance and without the consumer knowing. So you start to encroach on a person's privacy. You can extrapolate and mine specific data about the individual, certain habits, certain specific behaviors that they might have, where they shop, so on and so forth. Think about how they encroach on our privacy. And then, of course, if you look at the applications, I mean, they definitely are a threat to our freedom of assembly and association, simply by being able to monitor who's in contact with who, where they're associating, when they're assembling, for how long, so on and so forth. So I would definitely say that RFIDs are a threat to our civil liberties.
What is the range of these tags? Can they be tracked, for example, by satellite?
Well, it depends on what kind. There are a couple different general kinds. There's passive and active. So the passive ones, they don't require a battery source, so they're good for example, my cat has one. So those ones typically are a few centimeters to maybe 10 feet. You have to be fairly close to pick up those. The other ones that have a battery attached, like the transponder in your car to take a toll road, for example, they're attached to your car's power system, so they can afford to transmit a lot further. Those are active RFID transponders, and those can be up to about 100 meters.
The main purpose of tagging human beings is security. What we're told is that if you have a tag underneath your skin and you have a child, the child can be retrieved. If you are in an accident far from home, this tag will then give them a code that they can put in a database that opens up your medical files and can save your life. These are the arguments that are being promoted when it comes to tagging human beings. And it's very compelling. The problem, of course, is where it could lead, such as the surveillance of the population.
Can they be implanted under the skin?
RFID chips can definitely be implanted under the skin. Back in 2004, the FDA had approved consumer implants. And in the same year, there was a nightclub in Barcelona which actually offered RFID chips to their VIP clientele. Line bypass, access to the VIP lounges, a debit account from which they could pay for their drinks were all aspects to entice the club goers. So they have been doing this for quite some time now.
It's true that in the United States and in Canada, the medical community is endorsing implantable chips inside of humans. Lives are going to be saved, essentially is the core of the argument. It's true, but it opens the floodgate to all kinds of other possibilities. It also desensitizes the population to the whole concept of being tagged. There are medical associations that are pushing for laws that tag children at birth. So from the moment you're born, you are incorporated inside of a system that is not your family. Kind of like having a citizenship number where you are a person of the republic, so to speak. And then that really is very dangerous.
Do you think that RFID chips are, in fact, the mark of the beast?
I mean, if you look at the Bible, more specifically the book of Revelations, it talks about a time where an individual will not be able to buy or sell or trade anything unless they bear this mark, which will be located in either their right hand or their forehead. And if you think about how we've been slowly creeping towards a cashless society, and if you think about how we've been conditioned over the years to simply swipe a card or to just tap a card, I mean, all you gotta really do now is just remove the card altogether.
The people will accept this technology. I believe we're going to get to the point that in many Western societies, cash will not be used. It'll all be digital.
Is the Fed working on a digital dollar? We are actually evaluating that. Most major countries are now looking at the possibility of having a digital currency and really asking the question.
Imagine a government that creates money that has an expiration date, and if you don't use it, it'll disappear. That's happening already with the digital yuan, and Americans are rightfully skeptical.
President Biden issued an executive order to explore the creation of a U.S. central bank digital currency, effectively converting the dollar into a centralized digital currency.
The US dollar is in the process of being replaced by a central bank digital currency, or a CBDC. In fact, most countries around the world are creating their own right now.
What if I told you 90% now of the world's central banks say they're investigating central bank digital coins?
According to a report by Citi, by 2030, there will be up to 5 trillion digital dollars circulating the global economy.
And once this system exists and people have graduated to a chip beneath the skin, all the government would have to do is say, come down to your local city hall in the next 30 days and we will add 666 to your already existing number. And it could happen just in a matter of months. Everyone would be, because the system would already exist technologically, but also within the body.